Welcome, everybody, to the True Believers podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. This podcast is the one on the Fandom Podcast Network that covers everything that's happening within the MCU. And the MCU is back, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, last episode, we covered the first two episodes of the latest Disney Plus show on the MCU, Agatha All Along. And we got a lot of things going on here at True Believers, but I cannot do this alone. I've got to recruit my own team of villains. But, the problem is that a lot of them haven't broken out of jail yet. And one, I think, is messing with the Tesseract after I've told him not to. Kevin Wright, so what are you doing?
How do you turn this thing on again? It's going on.
Remember, we keep that off so Thanos can't find it.
Okay, so I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
How long have you been going on the Fandom Podcast Network here?
A long time.
Okay, so what's more powerful in the Fandom Podcast Network? Let's just say basement area. Is it the Tesseract or is it the Magic 8-Ball? I'm trying to.
Oh no. The Tesseract is more powerful, but the Magic 8-Ball is more scary because it has attitude.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, buddy. I want to put you back. So you're saying it outdoes the Hellraiser cube? Is that what you're saying?
We don't mess with that either.
What about the Zemeckis cube?
well, that's why I keep the Zemeckis cube here.
What's going on, buddy? This is good.
I am doing well. I've been reading a few pages from the Darkhold, so ignore my darker fingers. I cast a weather spell that went a little wrong, but that's
the Darkhold is a book, right?
Yeah, it's a book.
Okay,
yeah, and like I said, I cast a weather spell. I think that might have went a little wrong, but
yeah, what's going on, bro?
Yeah, and just for those of you who might be watching on YouTube this video, or if you see some weird stuff happening in the broadcast feed, I'm down in Florida, and we're still recovering from Hurricane Helene, and internet can be a little funky at times.
I have a coworker that is named Helene. She's getting a lot of friendly ribbon right now. She's enjoying the attention.
Yeah.
Do you remember a Hurricane Kyle? Because I remember Hurricane Kevin.
I think there was a Hurricane Kyle. Yes. So, but this is the True Believers podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network, your home for everything that is going on in fandom. So hopefully you're checking us out both on our YouTube channel and on all the great places you can find your podcast. But this time it's all about Agatha, because it's Agatha All Along, the latest show on Disney Plus. We are into episode 3 already. We covered the first 2 last week, Kevin. We dove into episode 3, and I want to ask you this before we dive into the actual
good, because I got a question for you too. So
this really does feel like something different from Marvel, doesn't it?
It does. Yes.
I just want to make sure you're getting that vibe too.
No, I definitely. There's just a different approach here, and I think it's a good thing. I don't know what most fans were expecting. I wasn't sure what I was expecting because of what I left with Agatha, of course, from WandaVision. So yeah, it's interesting. But I do have a question for those of like myself who never read the comics and such, and are just kind of going on what we're seeing on screen. And I'm fine being that guy. I'm living my MCU on screen. All right. So my question to you is, Kyle, in WandaVision, Agatha is sort of villainy, right? Mm-hmm. She's got some villain tensions here. And you're getting that feeling going into this series once you get out of the first episode, and that, the way it opened up really awesomely as like, a dark detective series, like a True Detective type thing. You're getting kind of villainy vibes from Agatha. My question to you is, they seem to be sticking with that a little bit right now from what we've seen, and we'll go into a little bit more, but do you think that is Agatha gonna stay a villain, or are they gonna kind of do the Marvel trope thing where an MCU trope, and I know they probably do it in the comics, where starts out as a villain, but then like starts looking out for her people, and then starts showing good intentions, and then maybe becomes a good person with really awesome powers. And the reason why I say all that to say this, Kyle, is that when Wanda, we last saw her straight up villain, straight up just turned evil, killed another alternate verse people, and that didn't sit well with me. So I'm going to throw that back at you. What do you think they're trying to do with Agatha? And what do you think we'll see?
I don't think they're ever going to make Agatha a true hero per se in that aspect. You might not get the reference, but Agatha is probably like the Stone Cold Steve Austin of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Does a lot of stuff. Should be the guy you hate. He's beating up the boss. He's drinking berries, flipping people off, but you love him because of his attitude. And I think that's kind of what Agatha
so
is.
kind of like an anti-villain, little bit of hero-ish going on.
I mean, too, I think they're going to play up something in this series that is also ties into what we had discussions back with Multiverse of Madness, is the influence of the Darkhold on somebody.
Yeah, I'm a little foggy on that, so please share some light on that later in this episode.
I mean, yeah, the Darkhold is a book of evil, so it's not, people who use it aren't exactly going to come out well on the other side of using it.
It's called the Darkhold. I kind of got that intention of it, so yeah.
But you know what, Kevin, we have a lot of things, Agatha, to talk about, but first, I've got a little thing of news to talk about. So, ladies and gentlemen,
Marvel,
it's time for Snit, Thwip, and Kapow. Let's get to some MCU news. Marvel news, Kevin. We have Marvel news.
I like Marvel news. Marvel news is good.
And usually Marvel news also involves trailers dropping.
Yes.
And this one dropped, and I'm super excited. The Thunderbolts trailer has officially dropped. Now, I'm not going to lie. I may have saw this when it kind of leaked out from D23 and found it on the internet, but just get a good, clean copy of it.
Can we talk about the poster real quick?
Yes, the poster's great.
Okay. Two things I want to talk about. First of all, the asterisk next to the Thunderbolts name. We'll get into that in a second. But this poster, I don't know if there was another one that inspired it, but the Sons of Anarchy famous poster shows all of the motorcycle guys in a big kind of fight together, and you see the main cast member. This looks just like that. Because obviously you get all these villainy type looking people that are, fighting each other at first, doing nefarious things, and then they have to eventually work together. I don't know if you noticed. Did you ever see that comparison online? People were throwing that around.
I did see that online. Yeah.
Was there another like comic book cover? Maybe they ripped that off of, and Thunderbolts is going back to that.
It's possible. It's been a while. I feel like I've seen something like this somewhere before, besides the Son of Anarchy thing. But I'm just not recalling it. But it was definitely something. I mean, just the look on Florence Pugh's face in that poster just sells it for me. I mean, it's a great poster, but Kevin, the trailer was even better.
Yeah. Now the person in the bottom right, is that Taskmaster?
That is So let me just run through. You got Taskmaster. You've got Red Guardian from Black Widow. You've got the Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. You've got U.S. Agent from Falcon Winter Soldier. You've got Bucky. You have Florence Pugh's Black Widow, and then you've got Bob.
Okay, we need to talk about. I don't know who Bob is.
Bob Reynolds, aka the Sentry, one of the most convoluted Marvel characters in history.
Convoluted, really?
He's basically Marvel's answer. He was kind of Marvel's attempt at Superman, like having a Superman type character. But here's the thing: the Sentry itself started off as an April Fool's joke in Wizard magazine.
Are you talking about the comic magazine?
Yeah, Wizard, the comic book magazine. I know you remember that from your Decipher.
Oh, yeah. That it covered all of the collectible card games during my stint with Decipher and playing all those card games. Yeah.
Many years ago, Wizard would always put out an April Fool's issue with a bunch of fake news and stuff like that. Well, one of the things they put out one year was that a Marvel comic lost in the Marvel Comics vaults came out of nowhere, created by like Jack Kirby and a couple other people, and that it was this long lost their answer to Superman this century, and that they were going to they found this, they were going to rework it for modern time, bring it out, all this stuff, but it was an April Fool's joke, except too many people believed it, and Marvel said, "Okay, we're fine, we'll do this." So they created this Sentry character. But the story is so confusing and so convoluted with this character because he has a multiple personality disorder. There's a good side. There's a bad side. We don't know what's real with him. We don't know what's not. But he is uber powerful and a head case. So
I noticed that he's being played by Lewis Pullman, Bill Pullman's son.
Yeah. Originally was supposed to be played by Stephen Yeun.
We got some trivia about that, don't we?
Yeah, from Walking Dead fame.
Yeah.
You go ahead and hit me with that trivia, Kevin, because I'm not. seeing
Yeah,
here
so
in my notes.
now normally we wait for trivia for stuff that is established and it's been out and everyone's seen, but I got some like pre-trivia for this because I feel like I might be the voice of people that don't know the comics and they're like, but we go to these MCU films and we find curiosity and we watch the Disney Plus shows, and this is a combination of these characters from the film and the TV series working together. And Stephen Yeun, as you mentioned, was originally cast as Robert Reynolds, the Sentry, but after filming was delayed due to the strikes in 23, Yoon dropped out due to scheduling conflict and was later replaced with Lewis Pullman. He later expressed disappointment of not being able to do the film and hopes to get cast in another Marvel movie. So hopefully Steven is not out of the MCU, Kyle, but he obviously he felt pretty bad about not being able to do this film. So
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting character, and I'm very interested to see how they pull it off. You actually even see the hints of it in the trailer. You see them like holding like this oversized S belt buckle kind of thing, and that's a big part of the Century costume. But Kevin, I got to know real quick, what did you think of this trailer?
And before we started recording, I'm just going to reference that conversation we have. I was getting the vibes that I got when I first saw the first trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy, and you said the exact same thing. So I want to give you credit for that, because when you have a mismatch of people that may not be like the A squad group, these misfits or renegades working together, and that is a trope, like the Magnificent Seven,
Suicide Squad, those kind of things.
But we love that. We love seeing these quirky people that maybe one of them is not like all powerful, but they all have skills and abilities. And especially when they're all anti-heroes, supposedly bad guys, that's the vibe I got, just like you said you did.
Yeah. Here's the thing. So, a little trivia here, a little bit for people who might not be quite familiar with the Thunderbolts as far as the comic book. Many years ago, there was a storyline called Heroes Reborn, where they took the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and made everybody think they were dead, but they were actually transported to another universe. And for the whole year, they were in this other universe, and they made comics related to that. But everybody in the Marvel Comics universe thought they were dead. Well, a new team of heroes arrives called the Thunderbolts. And the big reveal at the end of the first issue was that the Thunderbolts were all villains, and they were trying to be heroes so they could get people's trust and then betray them and use them for their villainly acts. Now, the leader of the Thunderbolts in its original incarnation was Baron Zemo. Yes, that same Zemo from Falcon and the Winter Soldier and from Avengers or Civil War. The team has undergone many changes over the years. They've gone to a government-sponsored team, kind of thinks a little bit like Suicide Squad. The team that they're using for this is probably more towards that than they really are the original concept of the Thunderbolts. But I am praying and hoping at some point in this movie, Daniel Brühl at least makes a cameo as Zemo, because it's necessary.
But but he has to finish his season of Dancing with the Stars first to get on there. So
that's true. But I am so excited for this film. I have been excited for this film since they announced it. I love the cast. It really does have. When Guardians first came out, there was a lot of people coming to me going, "What the hell? What is this?"
So
go ahead.
I got two things I got to ask you, but if you don't mind, can I just say a couple of little trivias real quick about this? So this is intended to be the 36th film in the MCU. Marvel Studio Director of Visual Development Andy Park described the movie as a Black Widow sequel. Lawrence Fishburne and Rachel Weisz are set to reprise their roles as Dr. Bill Foster and Melina Vostokoff. And of course, filming was announced that had been delayed because of the writer strike, and then they had to resume it. But my question to you is, look at the time frame when this movie is being released. This is being released in May of 2025. We've got Captain America, New World Order in, what was it, February?
Yeah, February.
It was? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So my question is, and it's kind of a two-part question. The Thunderbolt's name has a little asterisk at it, and we know the Thunderbolt name comes from the general, right? Right? That was
President Ross now, but
now Ross. And we know from seeing the trailer for that movie, of course, Harrison Ford is now taking over that role. And there's the tease of the Red Hulk that supposedly he will become in that. This movie takes place after that. So my question to you is, how is that tying in, do you think, and why does Thunderbolts have an asterisk next to it?
Okay, as far as the asterisks, I'm not real sure, but the way they're playing this up, because I think they're trying to play up a little bit of comedy and off the wall angle with this too.
It's
Obviously,
working.
with um, I think you could see Thunderbolt Ross in Thunderbolts, because it's a government thing, and you have Sebastian Stan reprising Bucky, and he's like a congressman or a senator at this point. Um, I think there's definitely ties into Captain America that could lead into Thunderbolts. It's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out because I really don't know what angle they're going to take yet fully with
Okay.
Captain America. I think Kevin, that's one of the things that's most exciting about these new batch of films that are coming out. We don't know the angle they're taking because they're really not dealing with all the multiversal stuff that's been happening.
Right.
This is back boots on the ground. Here's what's going on. So I mean they are. I know it like in Captain America. There's aspects of the Eternals are even tying into it, but it makes sense from what I've read. But
Right.
with this movie, this movie could be insane, and I think they could spin a lot out of this movie. I think they could get 2 or 3 Thunderbolts films out of this movie.
Yeah, I'm excited. I got good vibes out of the trailer, and I'm excited to see more.
Well, and I'm just gonna say this as far as social media goes too. Florence Pugh has been already brilliant on social media during the filming of this movie. She keeps walking around like, "Sorry guys, I can't show you anything. I just tell you we're filming Thunderbolts today," and she would just post that message over and over again. And then, but her and Sebastian Stan and David Harbour, just this whole cast, they could go on a media blitz with this that could be epic because they were great at Comic-Con and D23.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I am excited. Bring on some Thunderbolts. But, guys, we are here to talk about our main topic, too, Agatha All Along. Kevin?
Yeah. So I got a little buzzing here with the Tesseract. They wanted us to remind the viewers and listeners of our phases because this thing likes phases.
Yeah, I know. I've been working on that thing, but it's pretty stubborn. But yeah, we do phases here, not just segments, because it's the MCU. Of course, our phase 1 is always our kind of plot description, first reactions, maybe some comments on the cast. Phase 2 is a little bit of Marvel trivia and Easter eggs. Phase 3, we talk about maybe some of the comic tie-ins or key aspects that are possible comic tie-ins, and then of course, phase 4 is our final thoughts. And Kevin, is it pulsating?
It's happy now. Yeah.
Is it warm?
Yeah. It's got like kind of a little cuddly feel to it right now.
Okay, that's usually a sign I
warm
need to
kitty.
Yeah. I need to do something here. I need to bleed off a little Tesseract energy. So let's enter phase 1. We are here talking Agatha All Along, and we are here to talk episode 3, Through Many Miles of Tricks and Trials.
Hey, there's rhyming. I like rhyming.
We are rhymey here, and of course, big time Tony Stark, Captain America, giving you the after school special. Spoiler alert. We are going to dive deep into episode 3 of Agatha All Along, so there will be spoilers from this point forward. If you have not watched Agatha All Along, go watch it, come back, rejoin us here on YouTube or on whatever podcast you're listening to, and join us for a very interesting conversation and, maybe a little bit of witch's brew, too. You never know what we might concoct here at True Believers. But, Kevin, we are talking Agatha All Along, and not only that, we're talking a very sharply dressed Agatha All Along as well. I mean, hey, they might be witches, but they know what they're doing when it comes to fashion.
It's true. Yeah, looking good.
Kevin, would you mind giving us the episode synopsis for episode 3?
Yes, episode 3, Through Many Miles of Tricks and Trials. Agatha informs the Coven that to reach the end of the road, they will face trials that will focus on different branches of witchcraft. They also learn of the teen's sigil that prevents any witch from learning his identity. At the first trial, the Coven finds a coastal house with a bottle of wine that everyone but the teen drinks. Jen privately warns the teen not to trust Agatha, who is said to have had traded her child for the Darkhold. A timer starts counting down, and Jen realizes the wine contained poison as Sharon faints. As they gather ingredients to create an antidote, the witches hallucinate. Lila sees her younger self and her maestra from the Renaissance era. Jen hallucinates a doctor forcing her underwater. Alice sees her missing mother about to commit suicide by fire, and Agatha sees a crib containing the Darkhold. As they prepare the antidote, they notice the house is now underwater, threatening to drown them. With a few seconds left, they finish the antidote, drink it, and feed some to Sharon. As they do, water starts pouring in, but a tunnel appears in the oven, and the coven escapes through it back to the road. As they recover, the team discovers that Sharon is dead, as Agatha asks, "Who is Sharon?"
Okay, Kevin, give me some reactions.
Can I just say that I love the little Goonies shoot scene, like payoff here, like at the end when they going through the oven and they're all kind of like going down these like tube chutes that are kind of ominous looking, and some of them are kind of spinning a little bit. Kind of remind me of that, but it was a much more fun scene in Goonies, and they all get
Yeah.
dumped out in front of the pirate
You
ship.
notice how hard they were running into each other too when they got to the bottom of that thing?
Yeah. Okay, so so have you ever like started watching a movie or TV series and you fall asleep, not because it's boring, not because there's something wrong with what you're watching, but because you're fighting your own fatigue, and then you go, I had to go back and watch it. Have you ever done that, Kyle? We're getting
Oh yeah,
old. I'm sure
many
you
a
have.
time.
Yeah. So
Oh, I'm getting older, so yes, many a time.
well, for me, it comes with the territory, and my wife Erin and I are always talking about it. How it happens. So that happened with this. I started watching it, and then I fell asleep because I was so tired. And I tried watching it during work, and then stuff came up, or during my lunch break, and stuff came up. And finally, I rewatched it, and I was kind of going like, is this going to be one of those kind of filler episodes? What's going on? But then when you start paying attention to it, and you're wondering, like, what is Agatha's motives here? Because especially when she doesn't drink the wine, you're like, what do what's going on with that? And I have questions about the teen, of course, teens helping, of course. Everyone's kind of got their own thing. But then I starting to realize, okay, this is a as we find out, this is a trial. Everyone has to kind of go through this trial, and you know, it's someone's test to figure out if they will either work together or who of all of this group will survive it. And we get some uh very interesting trials with this, and including the whole wine scene. And I'm just going to call her Mrs. Foreman, Deborah
Yeah.
Jo Rupp, basically, because I keep forgetting her name. She's kind of like becoming like the comic relief, especially she says, "I could die in this kitchen." That was kind of funny. Um, and then my motives, and that's why I kind of brought up earlier, my motives about Agatha is she staying with the villain thing? Did she really give up her child? Is this stuff really happen? Is she as bad as one of them is saying? Um, but then I'm also like looking at all the individual performances and the visuals and stuff like that. And the story for me, I once I was able to watch it rested, I was diving into it. I was kind of curious what's happening here. I'm enjoying this different pace that I'm used to not getting with other Marvel stuff. Kyle, does that make any sense?
No, it does make sense because it doesn't feel like it's moving at that kinetic Marvel pace.
Yeah, yeah.
So
You're kind of watching this adventure, and you know that each episode is kind of a trial. That's at least that's the feeling I'm getting. So my mind is kind of prepared for that. And then you're slowly starting to see them become a team and work together. And we always like that.
well, I think here. So let's address a couple of the things you have. Agatha, I'm not even going to say Agatha. This incarnation of Agatha is evil. She's self-serving. She's always going to put herself first, and you see that. That's why she doesn't drink the wine right away, because she wants to see what happens with everybody else, because she's figured out it's a trial already. She is probably the most knowledgeable of all these witches. Let's be honest, as far as probably having seen the most and things of that nature. So you have that. You also have the aspect of, I think she's this trip down the road. You talk about her changing and stuff like this path that they're taking down this witch's road might change her in ways we don't know about yet, because we've seen hints of her son. We see some more of it in this episode with her vision, where it's the baby bonnet cradle, and she opens it up with the dark holds there, hinting maybe that yes, maybe she did sacrifice her son way back in the day to get access to the dark hold. We don't know for sure. We're making guessing at this point, but each of the witches carries their own baggage here, and it's very. I think that's one of the things this episode really reveals is how much their baggage actually is affecting them, and I think that's one of the things that this makes this episode so interesting is that you see they all have carrying something. Obviously, we also lose Deborah Jo Rupp's character supposedly at the end of this episode. We'll see.
She looks dead, dude.
Witches, and we're going to get into something else that was brought up here in a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot moving on here. We still haven't seen Aubrey Plaza's character come back. There's some speculation about her. So I'm just, and then to bring them all together like that, it's a building of the experiences because they're all still on their own individual journeys as well. So I think that's bringing them together, but learning their individual journeys, and I think that's what the show is doing. I suspect by episode 4 or 5, we'll see a little bit of shift in the narrative of them having to work together a lot more. A coven.
I got a question for you. So this Darkhold, it's like a book, right?
It's not. Let me put it this way, Kevin. This is not a book you want to check out from the library.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. What's worse, the Darkhold or the Book of the Dead and Evil Dead? Or the books that we find in the naughty section at Hogwarts?
I don't know. I still kind of lean towards that monster book that might actually eat you from Harry Potter.
Look at this. I got a little Book of the Dead action going on right here.
So here's the problem. The Darkhold might be the most evil. The Book of the Dead stinks because human skin rotting. The Harry Potter books, you just never know what you're going to get with those. Best to walk away. But you look at the Darkhold, it is actually one of the most evil things within the comics and the MCU. I mean, you see the effect it had on Agatha when Agatha was in possession of it. She was fully on evil. Did the same thing to the Scarlet Witch when she was being influenced by it. And I still will have that argument to this day with anybody in Multiverse of Madness. The Darkhold took her grief of losing her children and everything she lost, multiplied it, and that's what pushed her over. She had a sanity break and the influence of an incredibly evil piece of magic. I'm like, yeah, that's not good for anybody's soul. That is not chicken soup for the soul, Kevin. So, but overall, I enjoyed this episode. I am enjoying the pacing. I'm loving the interactions between the cast. I'm loving the fact that there's mysteries there that they kind of know about, but they still are leaving things like why is Teen cursed? What's going on with him? What's going on with each of their own personal journeys? And I think that's what's making this show intriguing. You're not just looking at we got to go after the big bad or what's going on there. So that's interesting. We know at some point again they'll probably reincorporate Salem 7 into this, so that's going to be fun when that happens. But yeah, so a lot of interesting things, and I think this is why the show is working so well out of the gate. But you know what? We talk about a lot of things here at True Believers. Kevin, what's the status of the Tesseract?
It's happy. It's just humming right now. It's purring. I don't know.
Oh, we can't allow that. I'm gonna put out more energy.
It's like a good purr. It's not like that. It's not like that noise.
Okay, well that's a good thing. That's why we bleed off the energy. But yes, we are continuing our coverage of Agatha all along here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And Kevin, it's time for a little Marvel trivia and Easter eggs.
Nice.
And I've got some I pulled up some interesting things here. So let's get started here. When Teen tries to reveal his name, Lilia remarks that a sigil has been placed upon him. When they turn their attention to Agatha, she remarks that it's a clumsy glamour. In WandaVision, she similarly remarked how Wanda's original spell was flawed and messy, and she was willing to fix it. So, very interesting there.
So, hold on. So, in the caption we're showing here on the videos, Agatha says, "Don't look at me. I didn't put that clumsy glamour on him. Sigils are beneath me." And then Wanda says, quote, "Give me your power, and I will correct the flaws of your original spell." So are sigils basically quiet spells, or what exactly is that?
They're small spells to do it depending on what they want the sigil to do. In this case, it's to prevent Teen from telling anybody, any witch, who he is, apparently.
Okay, all right.
So, another fun thing about Agatha All Along is it's playing along with some of the stuff they did in WandaVision, Kevin. Similar to Agatha All Along featured an homage to Mayor of Easttown, Episode Three's trial begins to be a tribute to a drama series like Big Little Lies or Desperate Housewives, aka these shows where women drink wine, cause trouble, and live in gorgeous houses, and are incredibly stylish. But here's the piece of Easter egg that has a lot of people talking. Jen mentions how Agatha's son could be an agent of Mephisto, and if you then heard a bunch of cheering,
Did you just say Mephisto?
Yeah, if you just heard a bunch of cheering, it's because all the theorizing about Mephisto showing up in WandaVision has finally paid off. Now, in the comics, Billy and Tommy Maximoff were created using parts of Mephisto's soul, and Mephisto is the devil. Now, I am not quite overreacting like some people are because they brought up the M word in this because it wasn't quite in the fashion I think they meant. But there is now some speculation too. It might not be from Mephisto in this series. And we're going to get to that later. But there's a character that's related to Mephisto that could be one of the characters in this series.
Can we get a custom meme of the famous Leonardo DiCaprio Once Upon a Time in Hollywood pointing, going like, there he said it, put like a Mephisto head on him or something, and
there
every time that the M word is mentioned, we'll just showcase that.
Next up, when Teen asks Alice about her tattoo, she mentions she got it in Colorado. In the comics, Agatha and her son Nicholas Scratch live in New Salem, Colorado, a secret community that is inhabited by witches and other magic users. In the comics, Agatha notably leaves New Salem and Nicholas behind to go venture out into the world. New Salem and Colorado. Colorado just has all kinds of stuff going on, don't they, Kevin?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'm really curious about Alice. Alice intrigues me. I'm curious about her, especially when we see that horrible, like, because you know how everyone kind of got their worst nightmare flashback or whatever it was, which was kind of part of the trials. Seeing her mom like wanting to commit suicide by fire, that was pretty horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, very powerful witches. All these witches each have their own story. We're gonna get more into that in there. So next up, we see Teen. Teen mentions that a lot happened to him at 13 years old. Now for a little Marvel math problem. Teen is 16 now. 3 years ago, he was 13, which is when WandaVision ended and Billy Maximoff disappeared. Just saying, is the Billy theory for Teen that the Billy theory for Teen is holding strong?
As one of the kids, was it Wiccan? Maybe
Wiccan, yes,
yeah. Okay, because of that whole W throwback thing that we saw in the last episode.
Yeah, and the W thing. So all kinds of stuff there.
Okay.
Next up, too, we've got here. While hallucinating, Sharon mentions Wanda and asks her to let someone breathe. This is a reference to WandaVision episode 1 when Mr. Hart was choking and Mrs. Hart begged Wanda to help him.
Please, Wanda, I'm begging you. Let him breathe, please. Interesting.
When Agatha hallucinates her baby and the Darkhold, the scene is framed similar to when Wanda stands over Vision's dead body inside of Sword from WandaVision episode 8.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then Lilia mentions that she doesn't want to climb into the oven because of something that happened to a friend of hers. Of course, in Hansel and Gretel, the witch is notably killed when Gretel pushes her into an oven.
I forgot about that.
And then also earlier in the episode, Sharon mentions how she would want to be buried in the kitchen, and then she literally dies in the kitchen.
Can I ask you a question? The whole witches getting trapped in the oven with the Hansel and Gretel thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Hawkeye was in that Hansel and Gretel movie.
Yeah, the Hansel and Gretel. Or so you're saying, well, you know, Jeremy Renner is a Renaissance man.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, you know, I just find that kind of funny. So yeah, interesting trivia. Out of the trivia, is there something that really jumped out at you knowing the backstory of these?
Well, I mean, the Mephisto drop is kind of important, but I think more to realizing the time frame of Teen is very intriguing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm curious. They're setting up some interesting things. But speaking of interesting things, Kevin, I need to bleed a little more power off the Tesseract. You might want to just cover up certain extremities. Hey. Okay, don't pet the Tesseract, Kevin. We are covering Agatha All Along, episode 3 through Many Miles of Tricks and Trials. It is time to talk about some of the connections that Agatha All Along might have to the Marvel comic book universe. And there's one. These are
Is this possible spoiler territory?
we could be entering some spoiler territory, and we warned you that we could be entering some spoiler territory. We're going to talk about the possibility of who a character might be. And we need to talk a little bit about Aubrey Plaza's character. We didn't see her in this week's episode, Kevin, but there's a speculation of her being maybe a particular character that is a very important piece of Marvel Comics, and that is Lady Death.
Lady Death. Pictures you're showing on YouTube here are pretty badass.
Yeah. So Death has this particular female version of Death has been a long time part of the Marvel Comics. It's a cosmic entity. You see here her in what most of us know her as is this hooded skeletal female. But she's also at times portrayed herself in the comics to look more human. I kind of think she looks a little like Aubrey Plaza in that picture.
Yeah, definitely. From what we've seen from stills, yeah.
Lady Death has had a huge impact within the Marvel Comics. Lady Death, sometimes referred to simply as Death, is one of the overarching antagonists as well as a pivotal figure in Marvel Comics. She is a cosmic entity and the personification of death. Although she is seldom seen and rarely speaks, she has been known to manipulate and interfere with the lives of mortals on a few occasions. Amongst her would-be lovers are Thanos and even Deadpool. To Thanos, she mothered the anomaly known as Rot as she teamed up with one of Thanos' clones to destroy this offspring before it could devour the universe. Although often kept to keep a balance between life and death, she is shown as more than happy to take advantage of situations so as to get the upper hand. Lady Death is also known to empower most death gods and demons, allowing them to take souls that have died through the exact nature of their dealing, though the exact nature of their dealing is unknown.
So what you're telling me, this is Thanos' ex-girlfriend, Death.
More like, yeah, you could say that, or she dumped Thanos because he didn't kill everything, but
she's like, I would have done all of them, bro.
A lot of people are starting to wonder if this isn't possibly Aubrey Plaza's character. There is some new speculation with the Mephisto name drop too, that she might be playing a character because they've also mentioned her Blackheart. Well, in the comics, Mephisto has a child by the name of Blackheart. And of course, in the comics, that's a male character.
But you said Mephisto had a child?
Yeah, Mephisto has a child named Blackheart.
Do you think because the term Blackheart was actually said, that's probably what they're going at, maybe?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I need to see more of Aubrey Plaza's character before I can make some judgment.
Yeah, let's just be honest. We need to see more goth Aubrey.
Yeah, we need much more goth Aubrey Plaza in our lives.
Goth Brie Ozma.
Yeah. So that's kind of the big tie to the comic. But Kevin, there's something you added to the notes here when do this because I think it's important we get into this is the visions the other witches had during this episode because they're kind of pivotal to each character here. And we're going to start with Mrs. Hart. Even though she's technically not a witch, she did have a vision. Sharon's is the only vision that is not depicted on screen, with her instead conveying what she sees through her reaction. This is likely because it involves the scene that most viewers have already witnessed in the first WandaVision episode, entitled Film Before a Live Studio Audience. In it, Mrs. Hart and her fictional husband, Arthur Hart, are invited to Wanda and Vision's house for dinner. As they eat, Arthur begins to choke, prompting Mrs. Hart to laugh and playfully demand him to stop it before eerily turning to Wanda and switching to a pleading tone. Interesting note, Sharon Davis reverting to a moment in which someone was choking to death could be a reference to a historical method through which witches were executed, namely strangulation or hanging, which is a theme that pervades the Coven's visions. Now, Lilia's vision, divination, which Lilia Calderon is subjected to one of the more mysterious visions of the Coven. As the witches begin gathering ingredients, Lilia is distracted by the apparition of a young woman dressed in medieval garb. The apparition then asks, "Do you want to see?" in Italian before entering another room. Lilia falls and discovered a room filled with vines in which a corpse-like woman sits at the table and glances up at Lilia before being approached by a skeletal figure from behind. After fleeing, Lilia announces in Italian, "She's dead. They're all dead."
When we saw the girl at first, I was getting a Shining moment there.
A little bit. With the corpse-like woman being identified as Lilia's teacher, it may have been reference to the second wave of Italian witchcraft executions that occurred between 1580 and 1660, around the time when Lilia was in her youth. Alternatively, the vision was the result of this tragedy that likely left many dead, which may have been part of the medieval plague or a huge natural disaster like the 1693 Sicily earthquake, which had a death toll of 60,000. This would feed into the theme of gruesome witchcraft executions, one of which is being buried alive.
Yeah.
So that brings us on to Alice Wu Gulliver, who had a very interesting vision of her past. Her vision begins as she sees a room filled with what at first appears to be smoke. Alice enters the room to find her mother, Lorna Wu, sitting opposite a dressing room mirror, absent-mindedly flicking a lighter. As Alice enters and addresses her mother, Lorna turns and says, "Your grandmother died today, thousands of miles away, and I can still feel it when it happened. It's my turn now. It's going to kill me." She then drinks what appears to be a vial of poison before screaming, "I can't protect you!" at Alice, prompting her to flee the room and turn to discover it is a steam room in reality. Alice Will Gulliver was recruited by the coven by Agatha, floating the possibility that she could discover what happened to her mom. This means Alice's vision of her mother drinking poison was not a relived experience, but perhaps a fear of what she might have done. The lighter, meanwhile, represents another more commonly reference method of execution for those convicted of witchcraft, historically being burned at the stake.
That was a dark one.
Yeah, these were all kind of dark. Jennifer Kale sees a vision. Her vision sees her returning to the kitchen to find a doctor dressed in early 20th century era scrubs in a room that is now bathed with an aquatic rippling effect. He turns and states, "You are an inconvenient woman," before seizing hold of her and plunging her head into the sink filled with water before stating, "And now you're nothing." Jen then emerges from the sink to find the doctor gone and the kitchen back in its original state. Later, as the coven attempts to brew the antidote, Jen says, "I'm bound. He stole my magic." Her vision sees her returning to the kitchen to find a doctor. Okay. Sorry, that's a thing. Jen's vision, of course, is, because she talks about being bound and not having her full magic powers, but drowning was another way that they executed witches. Today.
Yeah. And what I find interesting too was that prompted that interesting discussion because they were down against the clock of trying to figure out why isn't anything happening. And she says, "My power's gone." But then Agatha goes up to you. "They may have taken your power, but they haven't taken your knowledge." And I thought that was a really cool scene between Agatha and Jen here. And then that's when she realizes that she needs the blood of the kid because the kid didn't drink the poison. So that was very clever.
Yeah, it was very clever, and they did a lot of interesting things with that. And then finally we have Agatha. Agatha's vision comes last and significantly later than the other coven members due to her initial unwillingness to consume the poison wine. As the witches brew the antidote, Agatha is drawn to the sound of a bawling baby emanating from a crib sitting in the center of the kitchen. She is visibly emotional as she approaches, only to be aghast at the sight of the dark hole that sits in place of the baby as she pulls the crib's blanket aside. She is pulled back to reality by Jen before refusing to elaborate on her vision despite her distress. Agatha's vision is the only one that does not hit at some form of historical execution method for witches.
Okay, so question about that. So when questioned about, Jen says, "What'd you see?" Agatha straight up lies, says nothing. Where I think the other people would have been a little more forthcoming on that. Why do you think she lied, or at least didn't try saying another lie about what she didn't see, try to convince her that she did see something else? I don't know.
Because I think if she said, "I saw the dark hold," the suspicions would be even higher on her.
I mean, okay, well, is that so? We're gonna find out her relationship with the Darkhold, what she actually either sacrificed or gave up.
Yeah.
What's being alluded to, because Jen was the one that was telling Teen that Agatha gave up her son. So, and then Jen's questioning Agatha, about what she saw. So it's interesting how she was the one that questioned Agatha about what she saw, and also what she mentioned to Teen about, what she is rumored to have done with her son to get, sacrifice her son for the power of the Darkhold, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, Lots of interesting stuff going on there. Lots of interesting revelations, and we still have a ton of mystery to go. So I think that's one of these things that the
It's
show
good
is
stuff
doing.
there.
Yeah,
Good
it's
stuff
great
there.
storytelling. It's great
Yeah.
storytelling, and that's
Yeah.
great. But Kevin, I'm gonna ask you one more time. How's the Tesseract?
It's doing good. It's nothing. Yeah.
Are you sure? I'm one more time just to be sure. I don't trust that thing. See? See?
Yeah, it's confused now.
Well, that's even worse. But we have been covering, like I said, Agatha All Along episode 3, through many miles of tricks and trials. That just rolls off the tongue. So Kevin, we are getting ready to move forward into episode 4. I'm going to guess we're going to get our next trial here. Maybe get some revelations. Any predictions? Any thoughts? Any final thoughts on this episode?
Well, after you bringing up that article about death and the comic ties to death and what Aubrey Plaza's character might be, whether it's death or the other character, what was the other one we just said?
Blackheart.
Yeah, Blackheart. So it would seem that whatever of those two characters or amalgamation of both, maybe, Kyle, we should see Aubrey kind of coming back and going, this is your trials, but you're not done yet type of situation. I feel like episode 4 would kind of fall naturally into that we're going to learn more about Aubrey's character. And that, I guess, is my prediction, because to see them do another episode of more tricks and trials might drag the story down a little bit, because they've kind of done this episode where they did several things, whether it was going down the chute, doing the potion and all that kind of stuff. So there has to be another step in the story and another character reveal, I guess. And of course, what happens to Mrs. Foreman, is the next trial trying to resurrect her, because isn't that something that witches do? So I would assume they're going to try to bring her back, as my prediction, and we're going to learn more about Aubrey. What do you think?
I think Aubrey Plaza. This has got to be the episode where her character comes back, especially if they're hinting at death or anything like this. Obviously, what happened with Deborah Rupp's character, because remember, they needed the Earth Witch as part of this, and when they wrote down when the names were written down, it was just a black heart for the Earth Witch, which of course referring to Aubrey Plaza's character. Hence another reason why people are making the black heart speculation. Personally, what I'm really hoping for is a Kurtwood Smith cameo in episode 4.
Comes in, you're a bunch of dumbasses.
Can you fly, Agatha?
That's right. There you go. Can you fly? Nice RoboCop reference there to Mr. Clarence Boddicker. Thank you very much, Kyle.
Well, he could be a witch in his own right, but
yeah. But this show's just kind of refreshing. I'm liking the cast. But I gotta tell you, Catherine, just wonderful. I love watching anything she does. Is she like? I feel like this is the series that's letting us know that she's not just a character actor you're going to throw in for comic relief. And she's done drama too, by the way. And she's a really good actress. And I feel like this is you're going to see Catherine Hahn Cook here. And she's not going to just be, the bad mom's woman. She's not going to be, the funny scene in Step Brothers, and all this other stuff that she appears in. You're really going to see her. This is her show, and I really hope this leads to other stuff for her, as well as more Agatha going forward after this series.
Yeah, I hope so too, because she is a superstar in this show.
Did you make I think you made a comment last week that I think we need to revisit right now, Kyle, that I thought was pretty important.
What's that?
She is the true spin-off character from another MCU TV series. She's the first one, right?
To get her own show, yes, because if you think about it, we haven't seen Haley Steinfeld in anything as Kate Bishop yet. But just a brief appearance in Mary. Miss Marvel's kind of the backwards way of this, because she was the main character of her own show, and now she's appearing in the films. But as far as getting their own show created within the MCU. It's well, no, actually, maybe it's Echo. It was Echo.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Just earlier this year, Echo did come out. Yeah. Okay.
But I think this is the one that's really kind of, because Echo was in Hawkeye, and I think that was always the plan. But I think this one just has something special feeling to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Anyway,
I think it's because Catherine Hahn, and I think they were so, because I don't think there was any plans to do an Agatha series. Catherine Hahn
Yeah,
was so phenomenal
yeah.
that it was that. So, but Kevin, you know what? It's always fun to talk Agatha with here and talk about the MCU. You know, it's been a great show. I can't wait. I mean, it's already flying by. It's a 9-episode series. Next week is already episode 4. We are going to be covering that as well. I mean, it's been a phenomenal experience. But Kevin, Agatha says we need to stop reading from the dark hole. It's her turn now.
She's doing the hand thing. There you go.
Yeah, and it's purpley, so it's starting to come back, or she's been zapping from our background screen. So, with that, I do think it is time to get out of here. You have been listening to the True Believers podcast, as we've been covering all things Agatha all along here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, if you're watching on our YouTube channel, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a share. If you're listening on our homepage of fpnet.podbean.com, we thank you so much. If you're listening to us on any of those amazing podcast catchers out there, from iTunes to iHeartRadio to Spotify to any of them, again, thank you so much for giving a listen. I am Kyle. You can find me on social media, of course, anywhere the Fandom Podcast Network is, from our Facebook pages and our different groups to our presence on Twitter. And you can find me personally on Twitter at AKyleW. You can also find me on Threads and Instagram at AKyleFandom. And you can also find me on Discord at AKyleW. Kevin, where can people find you when your fingers aren't turning black from reading pages of the dark?
Yeah, or messing around with the Tesseract, or Tessie, as I like to call it. Yeah, you can find me, on X and Instagram and Discord and all the socials at Spartan_Phoenix. And of course, you can find me lurking over there at the True Believers Facebook page, Fandom Podcast Network, and also on Facebook as well. So yeah, check it out. And please, if you're listening to this podcast, please check it out. Check out the video. We showed some cool slides, and I appreciate your support for subscribing and sharing out us on YouTube as well.
Yeah, and Kevin, I know you're getting ready to do some international traveling. You realize the Tesseract will never get through customs.
I know, right? They're gonna look at that going, nah, this ain't coming into Australia. No.
Well, we are going to wrap things up here. As always, we will be back next week to talk about more Agatha episode 4. Who knows what kind of witchy things and witchcraft will be happening, but I am excited to find out. Until then, as always, Excelsior to all you wonderful true believers out there. And of course, as always, make ours marvel.